Okay, we are live. Good morning and welcome to the June 13th Public Design Commission meeting. If you're watching this meeting on YouTube, you can find a link to the meeting agenda with the presentations in the description below the video. Before we officially begin, today is President Signe Nielsen's last meeting after many years of public service, both as a member and as president. And I have a letter from the mayor I'd like to read to thank her for all her years of service. Dear President Nielsen, it gives me great pleasure to join your family, friends, and colleagues at the New York City Public Design Commission in congratulating you on your retirement after nearly 2 decades of exemplary service to millions of New Yorkers. As a founding principal of Matthews Nielsen Landscape Architects, you have used your exceptional talents as an architect and urban designer to vastly improve the quality of life in New York and around the world, creating and renewing city spaces through hundreds of projects, including Hudson River Park and the Governor's Island Master Plan. Since your appointment to the PDC and throughout your 10-year term as its president, you have been instrumental in reviewing and perfecting our city's landscape projects, from playgrounds and streetscapes to large-scale developments. The good you have achieved in your much-lauded career has brought tremendous benefit to the 5 boroughs, and I know you will be dearly missed by all who had the pleasure of working by your side. As you reflect on and celebrate your many accomplishments, I am pleased to add my voice to your chorus of well-wishers. On behalf of all New Yorkers, thank you for your distinguished public service. I extend my best wishes for happy and healthy retirement from the PDC and sincerely hope that your next stage of life is one of great success. Sincerely, Eric Adams.
How kind, thank you. And I just want to clarify, I am not retiring. I am stepping down from the Design Commission, but I am not retiring.
Okay, thank you, Signe.
Oh, thank you.
And with that, we can begin.
Okay, so good morning. I guess by now you know who I am. Signe Nielsen, outgoing president of the Public Design Commission. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call to confirm commissioner attendance. When I call your name, if you would please say here. Phil Ahrens.
Here.
Ken Seth Armstead.
Here.
Lori Hawkinson.
Here.
Deborah Martin.
Here.
Karen Keel.
Here.
Manuel Miranda.
Here.
Susan Morgenthau.
Here.
Ethel Sheffer.
Here.
Meryl Tisch. No, you're here, Meryl. She's on mute. She'll be back. Mary Valverde.
Here.
Great. We have a full house. So we will now commence with the committee meeting, and we will not be hearing any testimony, public testimony, or voting on these projects. The first project on the agenda is the design of a prototypical Link 5G communication structure for installation in commercial and commercial overlay and manufacturing zoning districts citywide. This project is also on today's consent agenda. Commissioner Tisch, that's probably why she wasn't on the roll call, is recused from this project and will not be present. Carolina will let you know when to begin, presenters. Thank you.
One moment, please, while I assert control of the screen. No, please set off control now.
Okay.
Okay, good morning. So you all can hear me. Thank you so much. Good morning, commissioners. Commissioner Nielsen, wish you all the best in your non-retirement. But thank you again so much for having us and for having this opportunity to present to you today. My name is Brett Sykoff. I am the Director of Franchise Administration, the New York City Office of Technology and Innovation. Joining me today is Nick Colvin, CEO of CityBridge. In December, you'll recall that we last appeared before you to present the prototypical design for Link 5G, at which time the commission voted to preliminarily approve the design for installation in commercial, manufacturing, and commercial overlay districts, subject to certain conditions. Specifically, the commission asked us to provide more detail with respect to the promotion of digital literacy and in particular, internet safety, an examination of the size of the advertising panel, and finally, submission of the final citing criteria. We return today before you seeking final approval of the Link 5G design for installation in commercial, manufacturing, and commercial overlay districts. Together with other exciting initiatives that we are aggressively working on at OTI, Link 5G promises to really move the needle to expand access to enhanced wireless services to those neighborhoods most in need. This time, I'd like to turn it over to Nick Colvin, CEO of City Bridge, to walk you through the presentation. Nick.
Thank you, Brett, and thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to meet with you again this morning. As Brett mentioned, when we last met, you inquired about digital literacy, screen housing size, and siting rules. I'm going to take you through a brief presentation to explore these areas in more detail. First, our digital literacy plans and content. Our digital literacy initiatives fall into three main categories: Gigabit Center partnerships, community partnerships, and Link NYC specific educational materials. Gigabit centers are public facilities available to the community and that support technology access and training, such as a library, community center, computer lab, or media lab. Candidate locations are selected by the Office of Technology and Innovation and City Bridge in collaboration with borough presidents and community groups. These centers are provided with Link NYC's super fast Wi-Fi throughout their facility. With this Wi-Fi comes neutral high-capacity fiber optic infrastructure that can be used to support other internet connectivity needs of the center and the surrounding community. The first Gigabit Center that we opened is at Silicon Harlem, with the support of former Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer and current President Mark Levine. Silicon Harlem's training programs run across all areas of technology, with special emphasis on entrepreneurship and urban systems innovation, and it includes public access internet for the community. This past Saturday, we celebrated our second Gigabit Center opening at the Andrew Friedman home in the Bronx. This center is initially focused on digital literacy and technology skills in partnership with the Knowledge House, a Bronx-based organization dedicated to providing technology skills to underserved communities. And later this year, the Andrew Friedman home will launch a digital media lab. Our next two Gigabit centers that will open are the Allen Senior Center in Queens and Digital Girl in Brooklyn. We expect both of these to open later this summer. The Staten Island Gigabit Center is in final location selection with the Borough President's Office and community groups, and we hope will open by the end of the year. We take online safety and privacy very seriously. This is why we do not track activity on our Wi-Fi network, tablets, or any of our services, nor do we ever sell personal information or share it with any third party for their own use. Our dedication to online safety and privacy extends to our partnerships with and support of organizations like the Knowledge House and Digital Girl, as well as other organizations that we partner with to support their programming and collaborate on public messaging. As a sample of the educational workshops offered by the Knowledge House, we have digital literacy, exploring careers in tech, and build your own program, in which students learn coding skills. The digital literacy program starts with the computer basics and touches on everything from common online tools, social media, digital privacy, and password safety, to how to avoid phishing and other online scams. Digital Girl offers many programs, including technology education focused on older adults, and their Digital Me curriculum, which focuses on social media literacy, privacy, and internet safety for teens. And here's a sample of the many organizations that we are either working with already or have identified as candidates as we expand our system to their communities. Now we'll move on to the screen housing size. The ad displays on Link 5G are the same size, height, and orientation as the existing Link NYC structures. And this is part of our effort to maintain a consistent look and feel with the existing kiosk. With our partners at Antenna Design and our engineering partners, Comtech and Zenfi, we continue to look for ways to safely reduce the size of the display housing. This is challenging for a number of reasons, including, most importantly, ADA compliance, which requires the bottom edge of the display to be no more than 27 inches above grade. Public safety, which requires it resist climbing and doesn't endanger the public if vandalized or impacted by a vehicle. And environmental conditions, including extreme weather events. We share the Commission's desire to maintain an aesthetically pleasing form while supporting the requirements of the program and public safety, and will continue to look for ways to minimize the size of the structure. Moving on to citing criteria. The site selection process for Link 5G incorporates 3 primary levels of review and approval. First, every site must be approved by the Chief Technology Officer. Next, any new site selected must be sent through Borough President Community Board representatives for review and input. And every site must comply with hundreds of city rules, regulations, building and construction codes, of which this is just a small sample. And now to highlight some of the most pertinent criteria, and specifically to Link 5G in all areas, including commercial and manufacturing zones, as we're discussing today. Only one Link 5G may be installed per block on either side of the street, and in any event must be at least 200 feet from the nearest Link 5G. And we must maintain clear corners with no unit installed near a corner quadrant or the building line. Public safety is paramount. Link 5G must be ADA compliant with respect to its placement and leave adequate clearance to ensure accessibility and safety in relation to the surrounding environment. All of the existing franchise siting rules remain, including the maintenance of open streets and sidewalks and respect for community landmarks and the arts. No Link 5G may be installed in front of a house of worship or a produce stand, and approval of this commission is required for any new site within 75 feet of an art installation. And finally, respect for the city's greenscape is vitally important. Any installation within proximity to a street tree or other area under Parks Department jurisdiction must comply with all existing parks rules, in addition to the franchise-specific restrictions. For example, no Link 5G will be installed beneath the tree's canopy, and they may not be installed closer than 3 feet from a tree pit, whether or not a tree is planted there. Thank you for your time, commissioners, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
First off, I just want to say thank you so much for what seems to me to be a very robust community outreach. And I just wondered whether, or community education. I believe you said that the Manhattan facility has been open the longest.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, I'm sure you don't keep track of how many people have come through, but are you sensing that this people are using it and it's a positive?
Absolutely. Yes, the Silicon Harlem facility has been open for many years, and with the installation of the Link Wi-Fi, it experienced a dramatic upgrade in its internet connectivity, and as part of that was refurbished to create this innovation center. And so it was already an important part of the community and has only expanded its role since the installation of our Wi-Fi, and its program has expanded to include entrepreneurship and innovation as a new focus for the center.
That seems to me to make a lot of sense, that you take a facility that people already know, and rather than something that is brand new. That's great to hear. I had one other question. Yes. This is very minor. On the tree pits, the city is in the process of upgrading their tree pits to 5x10 instead of the traditional 5x5. So I just want to be sure that when you say 3 feet from any tree pit, you assume that pit will become 5x10 if it isn't already.
Yes, that is my expectation.
Okay.
I'd just like to also follow on, and I want to thank you for what is very detailed. And I saw that for Brooklyn, one of the partners is Brick, and across the street from the Freedman House in the Bronx is the Bronx Museum. And I would like that for every one of these sites, there was a cultural institution that's an art institution to be connected to it if possible. For many reasons, not just that their education programs are usually underserved for tech, and a lot of people in communities of color can derive benefit from having design and et cetera courses, and through arts institutions. And with artists, you have people who will really kick the tires on what it is that Absolutely. You're providing in the community. So for the Andrew Freedman House to walk across the streets of Bronx Museum is not a hard trip. I'd love to see that happen. And I'd love to see each one of these sites, like with Brick, being a partner for the Brooklyn unit, that each one of them have an arts institution connected to it if possible. And the final question that I have is, it would seem efficacious to actually track the number of people, obviously not who, but I would like to know how many people actually use it as a hard number. I don't know if that
Okay.
bothers anyone else, but that's how I feel about
In terms of the facility, you mean? Or the Wi-Fi network?
it. In terms of the use of the education use inside the
Okay, got it.
centers.
Yes, we'll have to speak with our partners about collecting that information, but we can try to follow up with those numbers and ask them to share those with us. Because again, we don't operate the facility ourselves. We're supporting another entity operating that. But I have to say, I fully share your commitment to the arts and the desire to support the arts. I've got my start in technology because I'm a musician and got really into the tech side of music, and began my days in media labs, actually playing with various multimedia programs. So fully support that. The Andrew Friedman Home, as you may or may not know, is heavily focused on supporting the arts as artists and residence facilities in the upper floors of it. And I believe is already in conversation with a museum across the street to work with them to support it with some of the fiber that we brought to the facility. And we'll continue to look for ways to partner with arts organizations, both near the Gigabit centers and throughout the city.
Nick, I realize that, first of all, just adding my comment to my fellow commissioners that really appreciate the robust response to our earlier comments. And so just following on some of the other comments today, I realize that the education is being delivered by partners and that you're functioning as a kind of connector or networker with those partners to help provide content. Do you have a sense of the need for these programs isn't going to go away? I mean, as long as it will, it's just an ongoing need that will persist, you know, as long as there are New Yorkers who need digital education. So I'm just wondering, to what extent do you have some sense of whether these are becoming institutionalized within your organization or within your partners? Like, how will these things be stewarded so that they don't just end when, you know, next year people are doing a new budget?
Understood. So with respect to our organization, I can say that this has always been a core part of our organization, is finding partners in the community to work with and to support. And, you know, like the Museum of the City of New York and other cultural institutions in the city who we partnered with for many years to bring content to our screens to educate the public about arts and about history and the city. We're working to incorporate into that ongoing programming and planning digital literacy and online safety, sort of like fact sheets and information that we can show on our screens. And we'll keep that as part of our content programming going forward. With respect to our partners, obviously we can't guarantee their sort of longevity, but we've tried to find partners that have a history in the community and have a dedication to that community. Like I mentioned, the Knowledge House, is a Bronx-based organization that was started in 2014, has been very successful, and we expect to be around for quite a long time.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could just add, I'm sorry, just to reaffirm the city's commitment to also support digital literacy and ensure that internet safety is a very, you know, paramount concern to us. And we will continue to work with our franchisee and our great partner, City Bridge, and all our other franchisees to get out the word and get out the message. So it's not going to be lost on us as well.
So Brett, does Do It see the kind of ongoing stewardship of that delivery of that content as part of its role here as well?
For sure. I mean, City Bridge is a really important franchise, the Lincoln Licensing franchise to you know, Do It, or what is now OTI. So to the extent that we can mirror or take best practices from what we're doing here and how City Bridge is handling this to other facets of what we do, I think we'll definitely do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Although I know this is very early in the cycle of these things, having read, I guess, very recently that the last city public phone booth, right, was removed from the city streets. I'm curious to understand how the relationship between the city's Office of Franchise and our franchisee regulates not just the installation, but the responsibility for both the maintenance and ultimately, I would assume, the removal as new technologies develop that may make this 5G connection no longer essential to our digital use.
Yeah, yeah. For let Nick expand a little bit on their efforts to and structures are in good working order and in good condition. But from our perspective, the lessons learned from the payphone franchise, right? I mean, those things were installed in too many places and got out of control. And we're more than thrilled to see the last one removed from the city streets. So we have provisions in the franchise agreement, very strong provisions which call for very rigorous maintenance and cleanliness protocols. And we want them to look good. We want them to be used. We want the public to embrace them. And we like the design, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure, working with our partner City Bridge, to make sure those structures are in good repair. Nick, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the specifics that go into the maintenance and periodic maintenance that
Absolutely
goes?
Yeah, and first I'll just mention that with respect to the last payphone that was removed, if you'd like to see it, we've donated it to the Museum of the City of New York as part of our partnership with them. It will be on display as part of their Analog New York exhibit, I believe, starting in just a few days. With respect
I have
to
one firmly in my mind's eye forever, but thank you.
Excellent. And I should mention there are 4 of the Superman phone booths still on the Upper West Side. Yeah,
I saw one. I lived there. It was great.
I think they're mostly used for Instagram photos these days, not phone calls. But they'll be there for as long as we can keep them running. So with respect to maintenance of the kiosks, these are designed to last really for many years with the existing technology, and to be refreshed periodically inside the structures as technology evolves. And we expect the technology itself, or the structure itself, will be in existence for many years, even decades. Both the existing structure and the Link 5G kiosk, they've been designed to last. And as Brett said, there are rigorous maintenance protocols. We visit every site at least once per week. Some sites we visit multiple times per week to keep it clean. And we have very strict requirements in terms of maintenance of operability. So when something goes down, we have monitoring on all of the systems within the structure, and we see when it goes down, we have the ability to remotely recover it. We have teams that are dedicated to looking for those alerts and attempting to remotely repair issues. And if they can't be remotely repaired, we dispatch crews to go in and physically replace the parts that have failed on those units. And that's just part of our standard maintenance and repair operation that's really been in effect for, since the beginning of the program. It will, of course, remain in effect as required by our franchise with the city for so long as we're the franchisee.
Thank you.
Is it appropriate? Can you hear me?
Yes, Ethel.
Yes.
Thank you. One other major point when we discussed this originally is the question of how and where will all of the siting occur. I believe that in the proposal, you are planning and implementing siting in manufacturing in other districts, and there will still be continuing a consultation with community boards and borough presidents if and when there will be additional siting in residential districts. Can you tell us more about the process and what the time frame is and the consultation process? Thanks.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. From OTI's perspective, so we are solely focused here on commercial manufacturing and commercial overlay districts. So that's what this approval is for. But of course, the city goes beyond just those 3 types of districts, right? I mean, residential in particular, there's underserved neighborhoods throughout the city that are purely residential, that are in desperate need for new telecommunication services, right? It's not lost on us. It's something that's been our focus for many, many years. And we do see as a long-term strategy, Link 5G as an important element to achieving, bridging that digital divide, to ensuring that everyone gets the services that they deserve. So we will continue to monitor, the effectiveness of the Link 5G in the districts that we're seeking final approval for today, to see how it will translate to both residential, historic, and other districts throughout the city. But at this moment, I can't give you a firm time frame. We want to be smart about this. We want to be careful. We don't want to force anything. So we will, of course, come back to this commission and continue to have the conversation with the communities about the next steps and when that should occur. Hopefully that answers your question, Commissioner.
Yeah, I think it does. Just with all your important work, try as much as possible for enough lead time on the process, the consultation process, so that we can all understand it and that it's working as well as it can be, and with respect to the various districts and groups.
Absolutely. We
Thank
absolutely
you.
understand that. Thank you. Thank you for that, for those comments.
If there are no other comments or questions from commissioners, I think you've done a very thorough job of presenting. We appreciate all your feedback and follow-up on our concerns. And as I said, this is on today's consent agenda for final approval.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All the best, Commissioner Nielsen. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I guess we can bring Meryl back. We are moving on to the next item, which is the design of a wayfinding and signage system for Flushing Meadows Corona Park, Queens. Carolina will let you, the presenters, know when to begin. Thank you.
Jessica, I'm sharing the presentation with you. One moment. You should have control now.
Okay, thanks. Hi, my name is Meira Burkhauer. I'm the Director of Planning and Project Management for Queens Parks. I'm joined today by Entro, our design consultant, and we're going to be presenting a conceptual plan for the Fleshy Meadows Corona Park signage program. Next slide. Fleshy Meadows Corona Park is a large regional park with many different entrances. It's also segmented by many different features, such as highways, trains, and transit yards, making it particularly difficult to navigate. It is a unique park that requires us to expand the existing park standard signs. We're building on our standard agency signage that consists of a family of signs for different purposes. This has been a successful initiative, which has focused on reducing visual clutter by removing about 100,000 signs. We now only install standard signs that create a comprehensive and understandable wayfinding system throughout our parks. So I'd like to introduce Jessica Schrader from Entro, who will present the conceptual plan.
All right, thank you, Meira, for that introduction. To establish a baseline of what we're here to talk about today, the signage and wayfinding program for Flushing Meadows Corona Park is intended to enhance the arrival experience, inform parkgoers about the rich history and unique natural features of FMCP, increase the connection to the community, make the park easier to use by ensuring information is provided when and where people need it. We want to create a sense of place for the park and inform the users of the full park offerings. To start our process, we visited the park 4 different times. We were evaluating not only the existing signage within the park, but the overall visitor experience. And we also worked with NYC Parks to create an online survey that we engaged the public through. It was available in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Russian. We also had 2 different interactive workshops with existing stakeholders within the park. And we also held a virtual community visioning session where we learned a lot from the public. And really it all comes down to the park itself is huge. It's challenging to navigate due to its scale and to remember where things are. Additionally, it's hard to find where things are because directions, maps, and other resources that would help you navigate are hard to find or poorly organized or non-existent. And then also due to the park's location and the surrounding roadways and infrastructure, the park is itself a little bit unwelcoming and overwhelming to to find and to navigate. Additionally, once you're inside the park, navigation is challenging because pedestrian and vehicular paths are not clearly identified. So from this foundation of knowledge, we drew 4 strategic goals of the program, and that was to amplify our entrances, to encourage confident navigation for each visitor, to prioritize information hierarchy, and to promote discovery within the park. To fully understand the park and how the signage and wayfinding program works, it's very important to understand how large the park itself is. From tip to tip, it's over about 4 miles long, and it actually can contain over 680 football fields. It's the 4th largest park within the NYC park system. And so to really make that park easier and more friendly to navigate to the average user, we leaned into the park's existing infrastructure and surrounding environments and divided the park into what we're terming districts. These district names are named after either the surrounding area or infrastructure, as in City Field, or natural features within the park, such as Meadow Lake or Willow Lake. Additionally, one of the core ideas of the signage and wayfinding program was to amplify the entrances of the park itself. And we knew that we wanted to do this by creating an impactful experience when you enter the park, no matter the entrance. We wanted to also confirm your arrival experience by using a unique placemaking element that built not only on the World's Fair history within the park using color, pattern, and being inspired by the existing infrastructure that you see here, but also utilizing the park's existing brand and drawing back on that relationship between the two of those design inspirations. So building on our district strategy, again, trying to make this park easier and more navigatable for the common visitor, we segmented the park into 3 different colors. These colors are drawn from not only the existing park's branding, but also the historical reference material that we gathered through our research on the different World's Fairs that went on site. At each entry for pedestrians, we are proposing a large-scale pylon. This pylon would identify the park by name and the entrance by name so that you can connect the visitor back to which entrance, building that mental map of the park. The design itself is referencing not only the existing park's branding with the logo and the green and our typography, but also building on that district color strategy by drawing colors from dependent on the district that you're from within these horizontal bands. The bands themselves are also designed using reminiscent features from the exposed structures of the structures left behind from the World's Fair. And we're also utilizing a pink granite that you can see throughout the park, unifying the design of these new pylons and the existing structures within the park. Additionally, at each entry, in order to orient people to not only what's available at that entry within walking distance, but also where they are within the larger park, we are proposing using the existing sign type that's super directional within the park system, but we're changing it slightly to work within the scale of Flushing Meadows. And how we're doing that is we are increasing the size of this key plan and adding in, again, those the color strategy and the district strategy, reinforcing where you are within the park and informing visitors. So you're constantly making that back and forth relationship between each element. At vehicular entries, we've increased the size of the pylon, but followed the same strategy. So this can speak to cars and such that need larger text sizes. And here is a rendering of what a pedestrian entrance will look like underneath this strategy. And then here is a proposal of where we would locate each one of these pylons and maps. Building on some of what we learned within the initial surveying of the site, we did learn that the pathways within the park are not identified for the majority. And so we did want to create a safer experience of the park by labeling these. It's important for these signs to reinforce the park's strategy or the park's guidelines and the visual vocabulary there, and to identify all of these pedestrian paths by name. When we can, for vehicular pathways, we're going to work with the DOT existing signage and use existing street poles and light poles where appropriate. And we're proposing adding these sign panels that identify the street by name. And here's what that would look like on an existing street pole. In the case that we do not have a street pole, we are proposing using the standard parks wooden post. And then as an additional layer of information, when appropriate, identifying the type of traffic that utilizes that path, bicycle, pedestrian, etc. And here's a rendering of what that would look like. And here is where we are proposing these signs be located. Additionally, our research showed a great deal about the Passarelle gateway entrance. This is the primary location or the primary entrance within the park. And for us, it is a critical one. Not only do millions of people use this entrance each year, it's also a critical point within the navigation of the park. So this entrance not only has the 7 train at the first point of entry, but it also has the LIRR. It's surrounded by City Field and the tennis center. And it's a critical point where most people enter the park itself. So we feel it's very important at this location to repeat and reinforce the park's brand, the park's name, and the entrance name in order to allow visitors to confidently navigate the park. But we also wanted to visually unify the existing infrastructure within the park and the park's brand. It was also important to utilize the existing structures within the park, and that these elements are constructed of very durable and easily maintained materials. The first portion of our proposal are these flag banners. They're 2 different sizes. At the entry points within this key plan, you can see here's the entrance to the 7 train, and here's over to the left, and then over to the right. I'm not actually sure if you can see my cursor as I'm gesturing. We have the LIRR train here. We're proposing 2 different sizes of banners, and these banners would be non-invasive to the current uses of the flagpole. So any temporary or future art or any flag raising would all be able to be accommodated within this strategy. Previously, our strategy included 14 alternating banners along the Passarelle Bridge, which is about 1/3 of a mile long. It's a fairly large bridge. And then 19 alternating banners on the Passarelle building itself. We've revised that now to include 8 metal banners along the Passarelle building itself, or bridge itself, and utilizing along the entrance at the number 1, you can see we're identifying the park by name and the Passarelle Bridge by name, then using parks branded banners for the central portion of the walkway, and then again at the other side of the entry, utilizing the name of the park and the Passarelle Bridge. And then on top of the building itself, we are only utilizing the branded banners. And here is a rendering of what that looks like. These banners would additionally be made out of aluminum themselves. They would be perforated, and then they would be meant to be installed to be very durable and long lasting. Building on this entrance experience, we wanted to create one additional element at the Passarelle Gateway that would refer back to not only the existing historical structures within the park, but also provide one more opportunity for the park's brand visualization without overwhelming the surrounding experience or environment. And we were lucky enough to come across these original architectural drawings, which you can see here on your right. And they depict a projecting orbit graphic that was originally intended for each side of this chimney of the existing Passarelle. And so we took that historical design language and utilized the parks brand. So what we did was using stainless steel, which is, again, what is used for the Unisphere. So we have that unity of materials, and we're projecting the park's logo about 11 inches from the facade itself, creating this beautiful shadow experience that will change through the day and subtly direct people within to go into the park itself. And here is a rendering of what that looked like. Again, you can see how the these banners work in conjunction with this logo to create that funneling experience going down into the park, but it doesn't visually overwhelm the space either. And here is a view looking back towards Citi Field. So this is our extended sign family for the signage and wayfinding portion of the project. But we do have one other section of work that we're utilizing here, which is the interpretive signage. And these elements will utilize the existing sign type that you can see on the right, but be funneled in with new information. And these are meant to inform parkgoers about the rich and unique history of the park and natural features of the park itself. We'll be utilizing these sign types to create a unique sense of place for Flushing Meadows Corona Park. And this sign plan here, you can see that these locations, while they're conceptual in nature, we will be providing precise locations in the future. We're showing here which signs we're intending to have nature interpretive information and which signs we're intending to have historical interpretive information. And that is the entirety of our presentation today. I am here to answer all of your questions. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I must request that Manuel, as our resident graphic and wayfinding commissioner, would you like to start off? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Sure, yeah. Well, thanks so much for that presentation. I know it's a large project. There's a lot to kind of like organize, and I think, Entro's done a great job of using the existing park signage, to organize this space and give like kind of great wayfinding system. And I know we've had some back and forth too for this presentation. I think the system works pretty well. The one comment that I have is that I'm still not a fan of color coding the systems. I think there's a couple of reasons why. One is that those colors aren't tied to names of districts precisely. So it makes sense for me to like name districts, yet the district names don't correspond to the color system. And so, I think there's a bit of like a lack of rationale there. Number two, it's a park. And so, if you think of kind of approximately sized parks in New York City, like Grand Central, there isn't like a color coding system. I think that's for a very good reason. It's to make it less didactic because it's a park. So the experience should be, a kind of like unified, sort of like freer, sort of like mental experience, which, signage kind of tends to invade. Obviously it's an urban park. And so, there's a bit more leeway. It's not like the same as like a park scene in Hudson or, another location, more natural surroundings, but still I think there is a kind of need to be free from that, the kind of didactic nature of signage. Obviously in some place like the subway, a color coding system makes sense by lines. I'm not as convinced that that's necessary for like, different sort of like areas divided for the park. And then my last kind of statement around that is that, it gives a kind of fragment or sections sense or mental map, to use your language, of what the park is. And I think, there's probably another way to give a sense of the entirety of the park while still kind of like naming districts to help with sort of like locations, aside from a color coding system, which is very present in the park. And so I think what's going to end up happening is that you're going to be calling the park, or users going to call the park like the yellow section, the blue section, the red section. And for me, I think that's not like, like the best or proper language to think of like a public space. If anything, I would favor kind of like district naming approach if you're going to divide by systems. So those are my thoughts.
I appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much. They're all very good points. I think the important thing that is, from our point of view, is that our strategy works in a couple different ways. So we've established these named districts, that the names themselves are taken from the surrounding infrastructure. And the boundaries of these districts, and this is something that's really important to understand about Flushing Meadows Corona Park in general, the boundaries of these districts are determined, again, by the surrounding infrastructure. So one of the things that you had brought up were the other existing parks within the system. FMCP is extremely unique within the system because it's physically subdivided into smaller sections in a way that is very unique to this park itself. And it's divided by highways even. And so crossing through those highways, it is almost we've been calling them portals in our strategy. It's a portal to a different place almost. For me, somebody who's living in Brooklyn and used to Prospect Park, I'm used to sort of finding new areas of the park, but it's a unique experience crossing over, for example, into Meadow Lake from the historical district. It's almost two completely different things. And so we wanted to embrace the challenges within the park by using these name systems, but also recognizing that name systems, they don't work for everyone. And so we added in the secondary level of color so that you can have that quick visualization of where you are within the park at any given time. And so they're meant to work in conjunction with each other and work together within that. And it is not our intention to create a fragmented experience of the park. However, the park itself is fragmented physically. And so we wanted to lean into that so that we could create that cohesive experience and acknowledge that these are different areas, but they all make up one whole. Does that help? Does that help and understand?
Well, I mean, I got that was the rationale. I'm just not convinced that it's necessary. So I think the district naming makes perfect sense. I think the coloring system, I do understand the rationale behind it, but I'm just not convinced that specific layer is necessary. I mean, I guess, yeah, I'll leave it at that for now.
I would just say I concur with Manuel on the color. First of all, if I were thinking about City Field, the last color I would color it is red. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me. But I saw this happen at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, where they decided to zone the different buildings by color. And I thought it just added confusion. So I'm going to support Manuel on the losing the color on the pylons. But I also have to say, I find it kind of amazing that you're spending this much money on this signage, including granite bases on the pylons, and then using crappy 2x4s or 4x4s wood posts for the rest of the park signage. It seems inconceivable to me that juxtaposition is your actual proposal.
Sydney, it's Merrill. I would just like to say, hence, now you know why we're going to really miss you. You cut to the chase.
I mean, it's just southern yellow pine, right? And then you put some formaldehyde-based preservative in it, and the whole thing just doesn't make any sense. At least
I would
recycle timber or something. Sorry.
I also want to ask a couple of questions. Thank you, Sydney. In reference to this project, I feel like there is so much investment in the Willits Point's entranceway, but I grew up going to this park and I'm very familiar with the ways that people actually enter this park. And I would vouch to say that most people, in my understanding, who are New Yorkers do not enter that way. They enter through the 111th entranceway, they walk down the street, and I think it's really interesting that that way is not being considered in terms of entryways into the park that need to be renovated, because for the most part, the people who work there full-time year-round are on that side of the entranceway, people who are employed by the city through the Hall of Science, through the zoo, and also through the Queens Museum of Art. That side, or that entrance, I think needs work. I've been there, and it's to me, I would like to understand why only one entrance way is being considered or being focused on. And I think that because of Grand Central and the different highways that sectionalize the park, I think it's a shame to not consider the local community and their way of sort of accessing the park and support that way. And I think if you separate or color code, I agree with Manuel and Sydney that it will just sort of create this sort of like, I only need to worry about this section, and this section is the one that we get for Mets, for the Mets. And so it's kind of, I feel like, is this project really geared toward visitors from outside of the local community or for the actual local community? I think it should be an equal-handed support in terms of how people navigate the space.
Mark.
So if I can jump in, we're absolutely addressing that entrance. It is our intention to address all entrances to the park equally, and to put a pylon and a map of the park, equal access at every entrance. We're just building up additionally at the Passarelle entrance, because our research showed that entrance needed additional signage given the surroundings, and that it was such a critical entry point with the surrounding trains. And I absolutely thank you for providing me the opportunity to clear the slate. I absolutely do not want to be shown as a proponent of not treating every entrance in every community equally and having equal access for the park. That is a critical goal within this program, is to amplify all entrances of the park.
Good morning, Commissioner. Yeah, thank you, Signe. Good morning, Commissioners. This is Mark Folk. I'm Parks Deputy Commissioner and Chief Operating Officer, and I co-manage the city's the park sign program. So thank you for having this conversation. I want to go back to, it's very good to see many of you virtually. We presented this entire sign program to you in person back when we could do that in 2018. Since then, we have re-signed the entire park system. And as Mira mentioned in her opening comments, we've removed over 100,000 old, damaged, obsolete signs, and we've put up less than 36,000. Now that sounds like a lot, but across 5,000 properties in all boroughs, it is a substantial improvement in everything this signage program is trying to achieve. I do want to address the two specific questions. First of all, the colors and then the wood posts. We feel the colors are very, very important. As Jessica said, there is no park in the system like Flushing Meadow. It is dissected by the LIE. It's dissected by so many major roads that when you're down at Meadow Lake, you don't even know that you're part of the same park, and very few people walk under the LIE to go from the historic core to the Meadow area and back and forth. And if you noticed, and we're clearly on board with the names, that's the concept. But as you know, Queens and Flushing Meadow area is one of the most diverse neighborhoods in New York City. We had to do the survey in 4 different languages. Not everyone is going to be able to read the English on these signs and understand that Meadow Lake is the zone they're in and the parking lot they parked in. But they will be able to know they parked in the parking lot in the orange zone versus the parking lot in the gold zone. And Signe, to your point, we can certainly think about which colors apply to which zones. So very open to that, clearly. But we feel very strongly that the 3 zones the 3 colors are logical in their definitions by the highways and all of the infrastructure that surround and dissect this park. And there's nothing else like this in the system. So we believe with the size of the system, how it's cut up into pieces, and the diverse usership base, the combination of both colors and names is critically important to make the system work. So that I will address that as the colors. For the signposts, Signe, I understand what you're saying, but those are they're 4x4 wood posts. They're the same posts that we've installed every one of the 36,000 signs on across the agency. They were in the presentation we provided to you in 2018. They have been the standard. It's what we keep in stock. It's what we buy. It's what we install all of our signs on. The genesis and the brilliance of this system is everything is produced in-house now. All the signs are produced in-house. We brought them in-house from outside contractors, so we can do a very quick turnaround on damaged signs. Wood posts are stocked. It's our 4x4 standard wood posts. So if something's graffiti, carved, burned, hit by a car, we have an ability to immediately replace it. So the efficiency of the system is built upon our ability, beyond the standardization of the graphics and the visual presentation of the information, is our ability to maintain the system so it doesn't become rundown, battered, and become a detriment to the park as opposed to an asset. So that is why we're proposing to keep the wood post, because it's in every single other park in the system, including Prospect Park and all the other parks you can name where we've installed this system. We went with the granite for the pylons, I will just add, because the pylons sit in paving, and of course we clean snow off paving, and we put down, pre-emergent before storms, and we occasionally salt, and didn't want anything to eat into the base. Entro's original design had a metal all the way down to the base, and I nixed that because I didn't want the salts grinding away at the metal. And so we have this beautiful pink granite throughout the park, throughout Flushing Meadow. It's kind of the signature stone. And so the intent was to use that same material. That's why you have pink granite at the base, because we weren't going to take a metal pylon down to meet the paving at grade. Well, thank you.
I just wanted to chime in that as someone who was just in the park yesterday with a 4- and 6-year-old who are pre-literate, they don't have any sense of how far they get away from you. And so the colors really do help them get a sense of, I've left somewhere. Like they know where you are. And when the twins were at the beach, one of them, distracts you and then the other one is gone, they have no sense of how long on the beach they've walked away from you. And you can't color code it. But here, where it is encapsulated, I agree 100% that the colors seem arbitrary. So better colors will be better. But the pre-literate, and then that's a very specific class of user. And then the modestly literate or the other literate. And we can't forget them as people. But so that's the only reason I would support it. But it does seem like additional and but.
I mean, if it is color coded, I don't know if those sections need to be named, like the areas, the regions are names, which makes sense to me historically, but then do the colors need a name associated with it too, rather than just the color? And then the colors are the primary colors more or less. You know, it's great that it's part of the brand, but I think, you know, those can be more meaningful too. Like if it's purple, if it's by the 7, or if it's, I think blue is, you know, by the lakes now, or, you know, some kind of color associated with the World's Fair section. It just feels, you know, you're using a lot of standards, which I think is great, you know, and it emphasizes the brand well, but, you know, if it's the standard, then it can be any part, you know. So I think there just needs to be something more special, which like the green section, you know, the kind of like bases, the nicer bases do. But, you know, the color, it just feels arbitrary. And so that's part of like my response to it. If there's an interpretive layer and meaning to the color system, then okay, that might be more powerful. But, I mean, I get what Ken Seth is saying, what Mark is saying about, you know, whether if you don't like, you know, can't read English, or, you know, you're illiterate, etc. I think that's a, you know, obviously Queens. I was just in Queens yesterday. Yeah, of course, it's like super diverse, so it makes sense on that level too. But then I think also, you know, as Mary's saying, I think that is true, where it's like, okay, you know, mentally, the mental map you're forming is like, here's the green section, it's for the visitors who are coming in for the Mets games, etc. So that's the red section, you know, are there, you know, I think just if you make it more meaningful, then at least maybe those kinds of associations won't happen as quickly.
Yeah, I would
And this is
support
Mark.
Manuel's point here. I mean, I also am a suspect of the color, but I can get behind what Kenseth is saying. And I think maybe a more, that historical reference is kind of lost on everybody. So I would support Manuel. I had a question about
we could certainly,
language.
we will certainly look at the colors. I will say they were little, perhaps we didn't do the best job in explaining them. They're not as arbitrary as they might seem. But the blue is clearly for the lakes. It's the Meadow Lake, and everyone calls that the lakes and lake and water. So that's blue. The historic core, that yellow is the key color for the World's Fair, because that is the yellow of the pavilions, the big aerial structures that are there. They're the ones you see from the LIRE and the Parkway. So that yellow color is embedded. That was the core color. That was the signature color for the World's Fair, and it is there brightly painted on the former US Pavilion and the towers, which we're just spending $30-some million to restore right now. Then we get to the City Field section, and we can clearly rethink that color, which was meant to be an orange to build upon the same palette as the blue and the gold, or the blue and the yellow. So I think we will come back to you with other colors. We will probably would like to stick with the blue for the lakes, the yellow or some form of the yellow for the core, because it is the signatures World's Fair color, and then we'll certainly think of something else for the northern section, the City Field section. Thank you.
If that was orange, then I mistook it for red.
It was orange.
I think it has to be Mets orange, or
okay. New
York City. It has to be, you know, that kind of iconography.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be red. It was meant to be our park's orange, which we can modify. But yes, it would be orange to signal Mets. Yes.
Yeah.
Or the 7 line. It could be purple too.
7 line.
Yeah.
I had a question about language and whether everything is only in English, just a curiosity, especially for this particular park.
Mark, do you want to take this one?
Sure. No, all of our, as per our standards, all of our rule signs and all of our signs are in 3 languages. It's English and the top 2 languages identified by the census tract as the most prevalent languages. So, and actually it'll change a little bit as you wrap around Flushing Meadow. So all the, you know, we've already put up our standardized rule signs for ball fields and things like that. That was part of the standard sign program. They are all in 3 languages based upon the most adjacent census tract. So the 2nd and 3rd language will change slightly in Flushing Meadow as you go around all the perimeters, because the makeup of the neighborhoods change, but everything is in 3 languages.
I have a question about that. And looking towards the future, if that stat should change, will the signage change, and how frequently are you doing that, or is there a budget for that? And how frequently will you have a turnaround for that?
Mark, do you want to take this one? I saw you raise your hand again.
I just need to be unmuted by the host each time. Thank you. Yes, so when the census comes out with the new census data, we will change any language, not just at this park, but at every one of our parks. As I mentioned, we produce all the signs in-house now, so they can be turned around very quickly. We do rely on contracted translation services. We don't do that in-house, obviously. So we would translate anything, and we've been regularly doing that over the 5 years we've been implementing the program.
Are there any other questions or comments? Manuel, did you unmute for a reason, or you're?
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think just to summarize, I think that we have all come to appreciate what Kenseth said about pre-literacy and multilingual, and that the color differentiation should continue with just we've already talked about the orange. Otherwise, I guess I mean my only point on the wood post was really using a less renewable resource than recycled lumber, but I suppose that over time you will decide whether it is cost effective to use pressure treated pine or not. Any other comments? If not, we thank you for your presentation and for the care that you've put into this proposal. Thank you. Okay, commissioners, we are now going to move on to our third committee meeting item, which is the construction of a maintenance and operations facility and adjacent site work, Orchard Beach, Park Drive, and Promenade in Pelham Bay Park, Bronx. Presenters Carolina will let you know when to begin.
You should have control now.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Nice to see some of you again. I'm Mimi Huang. I'm a partner at N Architects, and we are here to share a very conceptual stage of a new 2-story M&O facility for parks and an adjacent fueling station. This is a design build project, and our partners are Gilbane Building Company. We are hoping to start work on the road work before the 2023 beach season. So the focus of this presentation is really on the siting, the road work, and the very general massing. Okay, so we are on Orchard Beach in Pelham Bay Park in the Bronx. It receives 2 million visitors a year and thousands during the summer weekend. Our site is sitting west of the historic pavilion, which you see on the screen. This is a separate project. It's scheduled to begin reconstruction this fall. It's being restored into a major public amenity. And so the M&O operations and yard that are currently housed in the pavilion will eventually move into our new facility. We've just started, and we will continue to look at the historic pavilion, at the material datum between the yard wall height and the upper building, and at the details that bring visual interest to large surface areas. These are views from the site. You're kind of on the hill looking up in the first one, and the second one, you're already at the top of the hill looking down towards the beach, which is one of the views that is important from the new building. One of the drivers in placing the building where it is the flood zone. So the building and the underground fuel tanks are sited above the DFE. So there are no resiliency strategies included in our work. Another critical issue for us was mitigating the conflict between vehicular and pedestrian traffic, which you see in the red circles on this diagram, just trying to mitigate that. And then lastly, kind of pulling it all together, we also need to minimize the impact on the existing trees, on the forever woodland area, which you see in the dashed green, and also the sensitive nature areas, which you see in the red and also the red dots, and also trying to not disrupt the nature trails. This is the existing plan of the site. The building sits outside of the LPC designated zone of the historic pavilion, but we will still work on, sensitively siting it in deference to the pavilion. But you can see on this plan, I don't know if you can see my mouse, these are the existing M&O functions that will move out of the historic pavilion. So this is our proposed site plan. The building and the yard are sited so that different rooms, different specific rooms, are overlooking the bus loop and the new connector road to the north, the pavilion to the east, the beach and the promenade to the south, and the yard and the fueling station to the west. Zooming in, you can see this is the new connector road. It ties into this existing MTA bus loop. We are in communication with them. This will bring the park's vehicles from the entry into, the entry off of the main road where we are sharing the MTA bus loop up to the building. Then there is what we call a beach road, which connects the yard down to the promenade and also to the fueling station and to the existing recycling station, which is kind of off the page. And then there's an existing path, an existing gravel path, which we will keep, which just allows park staff to connect better from the pavilion to the building. And then the yard basically is a linear organization. You enter from the north, you exit from the south. And then zooming in, oh, sorry, before we zoom in, our landscape architects collaborators are W Architecture and Landscape Architecture, and they are prioritizing removing the invasives from the impacted woodland area, replanting with natives, helping to mitigate the stormwater runoff. Basically, the whole site is pitching down. So helping to mitigate that with these bioswales in between the yard, the new road and the yard, and also some bioswales here on the downside of the yard. And lastly, screening the building, minimizing the presence of the building with evergreens and deciduous vegetation and berms. So we are still wrapping up the site investigations, the geotech, and coordinating with MTA. So the location of the building and yard is shifting ever so slightly, very minimally. And the connection, this connection point is shifting a little bit, and this is all live conversation with MTA. So the yard plan is organized into a kind of front guest parking area to the north, page right. And then this rear is all fleet, parks fleet vehicles for their maintenance and outdoor storage for parks amenities. In terms of the building organization, it's primarily maintenance staff and functions on the first floor, and then admin on the second floor, which is where the more public elevator lobby is. And then the roof per parks requests. By code, this is it should be either green roof or PV panels, Parks request is green roof. And then it's going to also house some rooftop equipment on dunnage with a bulkhead stair access. And so you can see on the sections how the building overlooks the beach and the promenade and its position relative to the pavilion. Some other sections where you see the bulkhead and the rooftop equipment, and you can see its relationship to the yard adjacent to it. I forgot to mention that the building is where it is to also to partly shield the main functions of the yard from the beach below. These are probably the most awkward and not ready elevations we've ever shown you. These are really for scale. We are going to come back to you with much better facades. But one thing that we are trying to do that still remains is to capture this datum of the yard wall, which needs to be 8 feet for parks, and to bring that through to the building facade so that it doesn't look like a disruption to the yard, and the building really looks like it's incorporated into the yard. That you can see just for scale, relationship of building to yard, and the bulkhead and equipment above, and the fueling station also to the west of the building. And then we did some views, and the views have trees and also without trees to show you how we imagine using the vegetation to really screen the building so that it doesn't call out too much attention to itself. So we are starting on the promenade now, with and without trees. And here we're inching up the promenade. And then moving further along that path, this is part of the pedestrian path that connects the visitors who come off of the MTA bus heading down to the beach. So this is what they may see of the building as they look up the hill. And then this view is from a vehicle arriving, heading into the yard. This is the gate of the yard and the main entrance into the building lobby. And then this is from the beach road, which is to the south. The yard, and you can see the kind of the stepping of the yard that we did in plan, which was to try to break down the scale of a very long yard wall so that it's kind of stepping further and further away from the beach. Yep, that's the last view. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, questions, comments?
I had, so thanks very much. I thought it's very careful and thorough and sensitive presentation, very easy to understand what's at issue here, and it was super helpful. So thanks so much. So I had a question, and also I guess the future plantings, and then the plantings that are not there right now, right? That's what we're saying. That was helpful. So I hope those trees come and grow soon. So the question I have really, maybe it's more for the Parks Department. I don't know who to direct this to, but because this is a ground up construction, brand new building within this sensitive natural habitat, and also near this landmark historic structure, was wondering if you considered the viability or the visibility of that rooftop mechanical equipment on the roof, which seems incredibly unfortunate when you're doing a brand new building. And perhaps Parks or the design could explore finding space within the roof for this equipment. I'm also thinking about the acoustical impact that might have. So I think it would be super important, like you're doing a new building, why not?
Hi, this is Nancy from Parks. Those are all issues we've been discussing as the project proceeds. So yeah, we think you'll see some, some creative answers to those with preliminary. we do think a lot about what this looks like from the pavilion and from the beach and its impact on the forever wild. We've been doing a lot of adjustment to minimize that.
Yeah, it seems like a very efficient footprint so that you could get it down. I don't know what all that storage space is inside the building on the second floor, but maybe there's some space in there that you could just, you know.
We'll definitely study it. Yeah, it's a concern with some factions of parks and it's a live conversation. And yeah, it would be really good if we could do that.
I also look forward to, I thought the stepping wall that you were working with, that 8-foot wall, could be really beautiful. And when you show those examples of the brick, I really appreciated that. So I know we're so early here, but I really look forward to how that gets developed and, the sensitivity that I know your firm has to surfaces like this. So it's very exciting. Thank you.
I certainly want to go on record objecting to the construction of a new fueling station in a time when we should be moving toward electric vehicles. I know we're not there yet, but fueling stations leave a legacy, and particularly in a sensitive landscape. I just, today is my last day on the commission, but I absolutely want to say that I object to the construction of a fueling station in this location.
I don't know if Parks wants to respond.
Well, you shouldn't.
No, I'll second that as well, and would love to know more about the electrical charging stations that are planned and how many and where they are and in the future.
Sure, thank you, Signe. And again, Mark Folk, Deputy Commissioner, Chief Operating Officer. So I'm very proud to say Parks leads the city in our EV fleet. We have more EV vehicles than any other agency in the city, including our entire sedan fleet is EV. And this facility will be very substantially wired to support EV vehicles, gators, mowers, everything. We're moving aggressively to an all battery operated operations. Having said that, we need a fueling station because many of our vehicles are heavy duty vehicles, packers. And I should note, this is a facility not just for Orchard Beach. This is a facility for District 15 and 15A in the Bronx, which includes several dozen Parkside, City Island, other things outside Pelham Bay Park. So this is not just about Orchard Beach. There are not yet available in the commercial marketplace battery operated trash compactors, big heavy vehicles we need to maintain our beach cleaning vehicles, things like that. As soon as they're available in the marketplace, and frankly, we get the resources to buy them, we will be the lead agency moving towards battery operated equipment. But I will give you one example. We spend $160,000 to buy a trash compactor, which we need to pick up trash off the beach and move it to the station. Currently, the only available battery operated trash compactor in the market is $480,000. It's 4 times the price of a commercial regular vehicle. So these are the realities we deal with every day in trying to lead the city in being EV vehicles. But until the marketplace catches up to our interests and our demand, we're going to need fueling stations because there will always be need for a small section of our vehicles to run on fossil fuels, particularly the grading equipment we need to grade our beaches. So that's just the reality of the world that we work in, and not a huge fan of fossil fuels, but we have to use them for key pieces of vehicles and equipment we have. Thank you.
I have one question, and I also would third the green initiative toward as soon as possible getting cost-effective electric vehicles. But this open lawn and the existing trees, are there a lot of people who use that lawn? And what I perceive is that if someone is walking by and they wanted to just picnic on that lawn, how will they know what this building is? Will they be, I mean, it almost, the thing is, I haven't wanted to make any comment about any of the design aspects because this is like a ghost house at this point. You really haven't designed anything. So I don't want to say anything other than, please don't have, I mean, Laura's quite right. Like, well, if we're going to design it, why can't we have it, as less impactful as possible in terms of its infrastructure? But how will people know what this is, that they can't use it or that they can use it? It's going to have tons of bathrooms in it for facilities. But if people are up on that hill, will they want to go down the hill to go back to the beach bathroom? Could one of the facilities be outward facing so that at least if they get up there, they can use the bathroom there? I mean, do you know what I mean? Those are the kinds of questions that I have about like how baffled someone will be when they see this thing and it's like, you know, we're here to party. What is this? Does that make sense?
So
I don't know if you can answer that.
yeah, I can start, and maybe if someone from Parks can pick it up. Yeah, it's in an incredibly prominent position, and at the same time, we've been asked to make it feel back of house. So we are going to use a lot of landscaping. So your first question is that is a picnic lawn. That it's one of the few picnic areas. So we don't want to impede on the picnic lawn. But, you know, there's a reason why the building is oriented that way. You know, the entry is not visible from the picnic lawn. It's visible from the road. What's visible from the picnic lawn is the south and the east, and it is mainly sorry, I didn't realize my video was off. It's mainly the windows, and you know, it's going to be screened with vegetation. And then lastly, I think we need some wayfinding so that if you happen to be on that pedestrian path, you know, there's a kind of maybe a sign saying staff only or something like that. But definitely these are things we need to work out. I think Deputy Commissioner Falk has his hand up.
Could somebody unmute Commissioner Falk, Deputy Commissioner Falk? Okay.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Yes, this is one of 3 barbecue sites or picnic sites, we use the words interchangeably, is this lawn. There are 2 other very large ones that comprise, the 3 of them comprise Orchard Beach. The building itself will not, the building and the yard will not impose much on the lawn. We're not taking much lawn area out. The area that you saw in some of the renderings that slope in front of it would still be open lawn for that picnicking function. We honestly had not talked about putting public restrooms in the building. It's something we can talk to the project team about. People that are on this site now, obviously, you know, when they need the use of a restroom, they do go down to the restrooms in the pavilion. And there will be, after we do the restoration of the pavilion, substantially more restrooms and multiple different entrances. The capacity will be expanded quite dramatically in the number of restrooms and the access point to those restrooms in the pavilion itself. That's part of the program for the pavilion. But we understand what you're asking. We will advance it as we advance with the project team.
Thank you so much. I know it seems silly, but it's like once you get up there and you're with like a 3-year-old, and you're trying to grill, how do you get back down? You don't. So that's why I asked.
Mimi, you probably addressed this and I may have missed it, but what I'm wondering is how many people will be working on a daily basis in that building, and how will they arrive to work?
We need to.
Thank you. I think that Deputy Commissioner Falk is better placed to answer this, but they arrive from the north, which is page right, through either the up the connector road or up the pedestrian path. And lastly, the parking is not for staff. The parking is for guests and for the fleet vehicles. So probably they're coming from the main parking lot or from the bus station.
Yeah, thank you, Mimi. So there is a wide fluctuation in staff at this site because it is located at the beach. So in the off season, probably about 40 full-time employees, because again, it's the whole district operation for that section of the Bronx. In the peak season in the summer, it's probably over 120 folks. So we have a large seasonal influx of staff. As Mimi noted, no staff park in the lot that you're seeing. We have a separate parking lot for staff, both in season and out of season, and also so everyone will approach the building from the right or the north, where the parking lot is, where the bus stop off is. And frankly, many of our seasonal employees take public transit. They'll take the train take the subway to the bus. And that's how they arrive at that circular drop off, and most of our seasonal staff. So again, somewhere between a 40 and 110, 120 plus between our low season and our high season.
Thank you, Mark. My connection is a bit unstable. So what I'm wondering specifically, I heard the answer regarding the number of employees going between 40 and 100. What I'm wondering is, for those that are arriving by public transportation, I saw the turnaround. What is the experience like for them as they depart from the bus or whatever and move into the building? Like, I was wondering about that circulation. Sorry if you'd address that.
Yeah, no, there will be a path that will connect the bus drop off up to the building that kind of more or less will parallel the driveway. But of course, we'll look at the grading and existing trees and topography, but they won't be expected to walk up the driveway. There will be a separate path that will connect from the bus drop off up to the building entrance for staff.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments? Okay, if not, we will thank you very much for that presentation and look forward to the next iteration.
Thank you so much. See you next time.
All right, moving on to our last item. This is the reconstruction of Benninger Playground, Madison Street between Fresh Pond Road and 60th Place in Ridgewood, Queens. Carolina will let the presenters know when to begin.
Adrian, I'm sharing the screen with you. You should have it shortly. You should have control now.
Hello, everyone. You guys hearing me? Great. Okay, so I'm Adrian Hayes. I'll be presenting Benninger Playground, and we are in Ridgewood, Queens for this project. So a residential area near a train stop, some industrial infrastructure there on the right associated with transit, and the bus station at Fresh Pond. Fresh Pond being the main commercial corridor through this neighborhood. And it's one of the main pocket playgrounds in this area. There are other more regional playgrounds. Some minor amount of nuisance flooding in the area, but nothing that would really affect our site and require any action on our part. So that's good. So this is a full redo. This is kind of a classic example of taking, a fully paved urban playground in our park stock and trying to make it more robust, add some green space, and give it a nice facelift. Make it do a little bit more than what it's doing now. So there's some decent tree canopy there, which is great to have. Some existing lighting, which we would beef up a little bit. And then lots of pavement, as I said, and some outdated equipment. One single entrance in the middle. It's currently what the park has. There's another entrance that's usually locked. So this is the functional main entrance. Some sport courts. And so we would redo all of this except for the handball court, which is in decent repair. And the arrows here on this diagram are actually to highlight the drainage direction, because stormwater flow and infiltration is one of the big drivers of the design here. Because it's all this completely paved space, it's all just sort of racing across the asphalt, and we're looking for ways to capture that and keep it on site. Okay, some trees need to be removed in condition, and one sort of shrub, not quite a tree, that's coming out. This is a view along the Madison Street edge, which is the southern edge here of the site, the entrance edge. And this is that main entrance there in the middle. Pavers that currently extend out to the sidewalk are kind of uneven and need some attention. Seating area and canopy, and a long view showing the play equipment that's clearly had its time. Just one main play equipment for everyone and some sport courts. All right, so what we heard at the community visioning session was, more green space, some more seating was a strong request, and of course, play for all ages. Right now, I think that one play piece is, it's the only piece, and so it doesn't provide as much flexibility. So we took all that, and from that came up with this. Some clear separation in the uses was one of the other main design drivers, just a kind of undifferentiated open space now. And this allows both differentiation of use as well as multiple entrances. That same central entrance is here, but then there's also another entrance devoted to just the playground. So if caregivers and children just want to come for the playground, they can come into this section, and then adults or other people coming in to have a seat or play sports can kind of come into that other entrance and make their way. And then those planted buffers also provide those natural points to intercept stormwater along the way. And so runoff would come into the planted areas, into some green infrastructure plantings, and have a chance to infiltrate and settle in those spots. And then permeable paving also would allow that infiltration as well along this band. So here's a rendering of what that might look like. This is looking east. And we would incorporate a lot of sensory play elements as usual in both the 2 to 5 and the 5 to 12 areas, provide something that's robust but engaging. And then the spray shower area, because of the footprint being tucked in and somewhat compact, I think to make the most out of the space, it makes sense to give flat elements that provide runaround space and flexible space when they're not in use, so people can pass through that area unobstructed. Fencing is really only where needed to protect planting and safety at the at the swings area. And then fencing along that lower edge, the Madison Street edge, would be our 4-foot fencing, as typically we do. Open up sight lines from the street. And then our palette is fairly standard in this park, robust tables and chairs, RPL benches, permeable pavers, and then an equally robust planting palette. We would just mostly to maintain sight lines, keep planting low along the street edge, and then have some taller planting trees and taller screening in these vertical planting beds, so that there's again some sort of distinction, separation. And that is the plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think I noticed that the community had a request for a 7-foot fence. Obviously, the price difference between 7-foot steel and 4-foot steel is huge, and unlikely that the budget could tolerate that. So I don't know. I just want to sort of put it out there that if the community prevails, I would not like to see a 7-foot chain link fence there. So that's comment number 1. I see your hand is raised, Nancy. Just one more comment. You mentioned that the spray shower area is a bit tight. And that led me to think about whether the benches that seem to be on either side, whether an adult may not want to get wet, is going to get wet. And I saw the fall zones, I think those dash circles, right? It looked like on one side you could maybe move the bench into just a tad off the concrete. I'm not sure you can on the other side, but anyway, just something to think about. I don't exactly know how you're spacing the jets, so it may be
right.
in a written statement.
I'll go in reverse. That I think the spray comment is a valid one, and it's something that we could look at. The way that it's designed now, we've definitely looked at the footprint of the spray. Of course, a strong wind could change what's happening to whoever's sitting there. But yeah, I think that's it's a valid comment, and we can look at that. And I'm guessing Nancy raised her hand about the first question. Would you like to weigh in on that, Nancy?
Yeah. Yes, we're planning to lower that existing 7-foot fence. And as you can see from the image, the 7-foot fence is really, they do block sight lines. And at the same time, we're increasing the lighting. So we hope to keep to our standard of having a fence that the public can see over in this playground. And also that's, the lower fences, it's a much less long-term maintenance to keep up. So our intention is to go with our standard 4-foot height on the fence. I don't see us changing to chain link.
Great. No, I think I just know that Parks does its best to be responsive to community requests. And so I just, but I think as a Parks Department policy, I think 4-foot is good, and I hope you can use the trade-off in lighting to calm people down. And I would just say stick to your guns on the 4-foot.
Yeah, thank you. Agreed.
Any other questions, comments from commissioners? Okay, hearing none, as they say. I thank you very much for this presentation. And we all do, I should say. And I look forward to seeing it come back, I guess, for final. Thank you. All right. So that concludes our committee meeting. And we will now begin the public meeting with a vote on the consent agenda. Today we have items number 28119 to 28149. Staff has noted Commissioner Tisch's recusal from item 28132. Are there any other recusals to note? All right, let the record show there are no further recusals. So I'll now call for a vote on the consent agenda. Commissioners, when I call your name, please state your vote. And if you want to abstain or vote against any particular project, you may so do. Otherwise, just say approve all. Phil Ahrens.
Approve all.
Ken Seth Armstead.
Approve all.
Lori Hawkinson.
Approve all.
Deborah Martin.
Approve all.
Karen Keel.
Approve all.
Manuel Miranda.
Abstain item 28132, approve the rest.
Okay. 28132. Susan Morgenthau.
Approve all.
Ethel Scheffer. Is she still there?
Yeah, she's here. I thought you're muted. I see your mouth. I see your lips moving, but you're muted. There we go. She said approve all.
What I thought I heard. Thank you. Merrill Tisch, the exception of the recusal.
Approve all.
Thank you. Mary Valverde.
Approve all except for items 28126 and 28128. Abstaining for those.
Okay, thank you. And myself, approve all. So according to my math, which is always sketchy, it appears that we have approval on all items, and we will record the abstentions as stated. So with that, the public meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Signe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Signe.
Thank you.